on proliferation and terrorist financing. While the number and type of terrorist groups and related threats have changed over time, the basic need for terrorists to raise, move, and use funds has remained the same. However, as the size, scope, and structure of terrorist organizations have evolved, so too have their methods to raise and manage funds. The main objective of this presentation is to analyze recently identified terrorist financing and proliferation methods. 40 recommendations to address money laundering and combat terrorist financing, as well as the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. The recommendations set out a comprehensive and consistent framework of measures for AML, CFT, and proliferation financing initiatives and are designed for universal application. They provide a complete set of countermeasures against money laundering, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing, covering the criminal justice system and law enforcement, the financial system and its regulation, and international cooperation. What is proliferation? Proliferation is the manufacture, acquisition, possession, development, export, transshipment, brokering, transfer, stockpiling, or use of nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons and their means of delivery and related materials, including both technologies and dual-use goods used for non-legitimate purpose, in contravention of national laws or, where applicable, international obligations. It includes technology, goods, software, services, or expertise. What is proliferation financing? And proliferation financing would just be the act of providing funds or financial services which are used in whole or in part to manufacture, acquisition, possession. Some characteristics of proliferation networks. We have here industrial items, maybe dual use, may or not be listed for export control. The risks posed by weapons of mass destruction stem not only from ready-made bombs, nuclear, chemical, or radiological material, but from dual-use goods and technology that are traded, shipped, and used globally. Almost every single moment, no matter where you find yourself in the world, you are surrounded by products that rely on the same technology and material as weapons of mass destruction. Semiconductor material that is indispensable for laptops and transistors can be used in military equipment. In some cases, instant coffee can even be used as an ingredient. And I guess that's something that every office has, huh? And we have here some characteristics of proliferation networks. We start at the front company or the cover name, and we go down to the broker or the supplier. And if you notice, a lot of this stuff is legitimate. So it doesn't have to be illegitimate business. The importance of prevention and detection of proliferation and its financing. Proliferation is a difficult thing to identify. Networks through which proliferation-sensitive goods may be obtained tend to be complex, as we saw earlier. This, combined with the use of false documentation, allows for proliferation-sensitive goods, the entities involved, the associated financial transactions, and the ultimate end user to avoid detection. Front companies, agents, and other fall end users are often used to cover up the ultimate end user. And this is a bit simple. This is a little bit more simple one, where you have legitimate bank, account holder, private companies, and they are shipping to North Korea, which would be one of the sanctioned countries, and you see the money is filtered through other shipping companies and so on, back through the bank. Proliferation and financing can be targeted by strong export controls. Proliferators are known to exploit global commerce by operating in countries with weak export controls, using free trade zones where the obtaining and or shipping of such goods are more likely to escape scrutiny, and operating in countries with high volumes of international trades. Financial measures act as a supplement to effective export controls to address the financial activity associated with proliferation. One, the risk assessment of the FATF suggestions in institution responsibly to proliferation financing includes the risk assessment of customers and products, enhanced due diligence on high-risk transactions and entities, and special attention to trade, finance, and insurance products. Red flags. Transactions involve an individual or entity in a sanctioned country. Transactions involve the shipment of goods inconsistent with normal geographic trade partners. That's like something coming from North Korea to the Bahamas. We don't usually do business with places like North Korea or, say, Nigeria or somewhere of that nature. Transactions involve shipment of goods incomparable with the technical level of the country to which it's being shipped. You see there's semiconductor manufacturing equipment being shipped to a country that has no electronics industry. Authority is mitigating risk. Common perception within the private financial sector is that proliferation financing controls refer to the implementation of country-specific sanctions. For example, those designed to prevent North Korea and Iran from tapping into the global financial system for proliferation activities. However, country-specific sanctions should be seen as integral parts, but not only part of proliferation financing controls. While limitations for financial institutions with identifying transactions or proliferation concern cannot be fully eliminated, they can be mitigated. Guidance provided by governments and the Financial Action Task Force, employment of red flags and proliferation finance typology is of great value and should be incorporated in risk management practice of financial institutions. The way forward. Implementing proliferation financing controls, they can be addressed at two levels. The internal level for a financial institution. At the internal level, financial institution would benefit from investing in three key areas: risk management practices, education of compliance officers, and technical solutions. Risk management practices should incorporate proliferation risk indicators similar to anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing components. FI should also look out for potential proliferation risks during know your customer and due diligence procedures, keeping in mind that proliferators use deception techniques. Financial institutions should create opportunities for their compliance officers to address a broader context of proliferation trends, encourage them to fully utilize resources offered by both government and non-government players, like the FATF, academic institutions, and think tanks. And on the technical level, financial institutions would benefit from moving towards more intuitive electronic platforms that go beyond mechanical list-based screening for designated entities and individuals. Now we have another topic that a lot of people in the Caribbean or Bahamians think that, we don't know a whole lot about terrorism because it doesn't affect us. But I think it's a bit closer than we think. Here we have what is terrorism, terrorist financing. And it is exactly what it is. It just provides funds for terrorist activities. It may involve funds raised from legitimate sources, such as personal donations, profits from businesses and charitable organizations, as well as criminal sources. Here we have some sources which would be legitimate: oil, cigarettes, food, and then we got some illegitimate ones there. We got pirated discs. I don't think we use those anymore, but falsified documents. I think we see a lot of that here. Bags, clothing. Here we have sources of terrorism financing. I'm sure we remember this one. And sometimes we act as if terrorism just came around, but we have here 1605, 1878, 1950s, 1990s, 1998, some as recent as 2018. Here we have some terrorist financing red flags: sudden depletion of accounts by way of with cash withdrawals, account activity indicates sale of property / possessions, third-party deposits, list goes on. And There is a difference in activity. As you see here, a complex web of transactions often involving shell or front companies, offshore secrecy havens for money laundering, whereas in terrorist finance, you have very varied methods, including the banking system, informal value transfer system, smuggling or cash and valuables. And proliferation, you have transactions look like normal commercial activity, structured to hide source of funds. Terrorism in the Caribbean. And I think I was sitting here earlier and I heard someone say, oh, we don't know anything about that, but we're gonna learn something about it today. Aha. We have this guy, one of our neighbors. He is a member of ISIS, along with 130 citizens of Trinidad. His first act of terrorism was to try to assassinate the Prime Minister of Trinidad. He was in charge for the plot, but he played a part in it either way. He fled to Syria. In 2016, he had an interview with the ISIS magazine. Famous quote, "I also say to you, my brothers, that you now have a golden opportunity to do something that many of us here wish we could do right now. You have the ability to terrify the disbelievers in their own homes and make their streets run with their blood." He was talking about the people back in Trinidad. That would be him there. Fears are growing that Westerners will be targeted in terror attacks by depraved terrorists who have traveled back to Trinidad and Tobago from the beaten caliphate now that ISIS has been depleted. And we may say, Bahamians not interested in that, but I mean, you never know. Because the recruitment rate relative to a nation population of 1.4 million people in Trinidad is higher than one of Great Britain. Now, for the Bahamas, we have some laws in place. The ATA that Ms. Raming went over with regards to laws in place for terrorism or proliferation. Some key points here: identifying and disrupting the financing of weapons of mass destruction are important tools for combating proliferations of weapons of mass destruction, goods and materials. Financial institutions can play a key role by identifying terrorist financing and proliferation, related financial transactions and reporting, STRs, SARs, to the national authorities, which would be the FIU. Potentially vital contribution to maintaining international peace and security. I guess, some would say, they wouldn't know if the person is involved in terrorist financing or proliferation. But filing SDRs or SARs are still good. I think I remember speaking with someone from the FIU and getting some information, some stats. There has been 2 SDRs filed in the past 5 years from lawyers. 2 in the past 5 years. So that means everyone is abiding by the law and doing what they're supposed to do. In my conclusion, while terrorist organizations are continuing to adopt and counter law enforcement responses, they continue to require resources to meet their destructive goals. Following the financial trail and understanding how all types of terrorist organizations, whether large, territorially based, or small cells operating, need use and manage funds is critical in detecting, preventing, and sanctioning terrorists and terrorist financing activity. Thank you.